What's going on, Kings? Back with another video. Hope you guys are doing well. Got some inspiration actually when I woke up this morning, and so I wanted to hop on here really quick and record a quick message for you guys. So stop waiting for X to happen to get before you give yourself permission to be happy. You can be happy now as you are. And I think this is something, I feel like a broken record because I feel like I say this on all my videos, but this is something that we all struggle with, where we're waiting for X to happen before we feel that we can be happy in life. So X could be, we're waiting for the relationship, we're waiting for the new car, we're waiting for the new job, we're waiting for the house, we're waiting for X amount of money before we can be happy. And my argument is, you can be happy now as you are. All those things are great, but all those things are like the icing on the cake. But the foundation, you can be happy as you are now. You don't need to wait for something to come into your life to be happy or be fulfilled. And I think, again, like this is something that we all struggle with. It's something that I've struggled with, still struggle with, if I'm being honest with you. And the reason why it's a struggle is because it's a very unfulfilling way to live life. Because the reality is, even when you achieve whatever it is you think will make you happy, you'll adjust to it eventually, right? So you get whatever it is you wanted, and over time, you may be happy initially, but over time, you'll adjust to it. And if your foundation, if your base, you were unhappy before that thing came into your life, you're just gonna default back to that. And one of the things that really kind of inspired me, I guess, to make this video was, there's an interview that Kobe Bryant did shortly before he passed away. He was being interviewed by Jemele Hill. And in the interview, Kobe was like, Jemele Hill asked him a question, and Kobe basically was like, he hates Disney movies where the ending says, and they lived happily ever after. So you know how you watch like a Disney princess movie like Snow White or Sleeping Beauty, and at the end, when Prince comes, it'll say, and they lived happily ever after on the screen. And Kobe was like, he hated movies like that. And Jemele Hill asked him, why? And Kobe was like, because it's not realistic. And she was like, what do you mean? And he was like, because think about it. So let's take Snow White. He goes, Snow White, she's whatever, or Sleeping Beauty, she's sleeping. Prince comes, he saves the day, he gives her a kiss. They ride off into the sunset, and the screen goes, and they lived happily ever after, right? So they had no more problems. And Kobe was like, that's BS. He was like, because the reality is 2 weeks later, they had a fight and he was sleeping on the couch. And the audience busts out laughing. And, it's kind of a funny story and it's kind of a funny example. But what Kobe was basically saying was, in life will continue to evolve and change. So, Snow White or Sleeping Beauty, she sings for love. She sings for her true love to come, right? Even the prince, maybe that's what he wants, right? The true love. They finally get it. They finally find each other. They go off into the sunset, but there is no happily ever after. There's just life. So, maybe there's things about Snow White that the prince gets on his nerves. Maybe or maybe vice versa. So maybe the prince has morning breath, or maybe he leaves his socks around, or I don't know, maybe he snores. And the point is, why this inspired me to make this video is that it just, again, shows that in life, even when we get good things in life, it's never going to be, there's no such thing as happily ever after. There's no such thing as you ride off into the sunset and you never have any problems. Expect that you will have problems. That's just part of life. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with life. That's just the way life is, and so I just say all that to encourage some of you guys, so when you get a relationship, right? Relationships are great. You get, I imagine that, a lot of my audience is single men. So maybe right now you're praying for a wife or you're praying for a girlfriend, and you're just like, man, no. If I could just get this girl to go out with me, all my problems would be solved. I'd be happy. And the reality is, yes, having a girlfriend is great. Having a relationship is great. But at the end of the day, she's another human being. And you guys are going to get on each other's nerves. You guys are going to argue. You guys are going to, fight or whatever. And that's just life. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the relationship. It's just two imperfect human beings coming together. So naturally, you guys are gonna, have friction sometimes. It's not gonna be just sunflowers and daisies, for the rest of your life. Or even with a job, right? Like you get a new job, you're like, man, if I could just get this job, if I could just have this job, I'd be good. But the reality is, when you go to work, I made a video about this, about not taking things personally, but when you go to work, you're dealing with people from different backgrounds. So they're gonna get on your nerves, they're gonna rub you the wrong way. Your boss is gonna get on your nerves, right? He or she is probably gonna rub you the wrong way. Work is still work at the end of the day. So, at the end of the day, like the work is still going to be work. Like that's why it's called work. My dad used to always say that growing up, like if you asked my dad, how was your day? My dad would be like, it was work. Like it was work, right? It wasn't play, it was work. So, money, you get a certain amount of money. Money is great. I'm not saying don't try to achieve and don't try to strive for more, but you'll adjust eventually. You will adjust to that money and you're going to want something else. And I think that's just the way the human brain is wired. I think that's just how we are. And so I say all that to say, I think sort of the big idea is just, look, you can be happy as you are now. That I'm not telling anyone out there to not try to strive and to try to, achieve more and want more for your life. I'm not saying that. That's all great, and you should be ambitious. You should want more. You should want to, because you have to be careful too. I'm not saying to be complacent in life. Like if you say, man, I would really love to make this amount of money. Look, I get it, especially in today's day and age, in this economy. You need money to do things. So I totally understand that. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't base your entire happiness on it, right? So don't base it like, if I don't get this job, if I don't get this kind of house, if I don't get this car, if I don't get this kind of relationship, if I don't get a relationship, I can never be happy. Don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. That's a very dangerous way to live, because I think that you'll find when you do achieve those things, they'll disappoint you eventually, because at the end of the day, human beings will disappoint you. Material things will disappoint you. This world will disappoint you. And so you have to have a very strong inner being and a very centered core. However you're going to do that, you have to be okay with you being you before you go out into the world, and you can't expect the world to give you that sense of being. You have to give yourself that. There was another video that I saw one time, and it was basically this guy who was an actor. He worked as an actor in LA, and his acting career has since ended. And so he's just kind of giving advice to young actors getting into the industry. And he was basically saying, if you're going to be an actor, when you go into an audition, you have to be okay and confident in your ability, in who you are. And what he was saying was like, you can't go into an audition expecting the casting director to make you feel good about yourself or make you feel good about your performance. He was like, because they're there to do a job. They're there for you to fix their problem. Their problem is, hey, we need to cast this role, and we need one of these 2,000 actors that we're going to see today. We need one of them to fulfill that for us. So you have to go into the room confident in yourself before, you can't expect them to give you that affirmation. And that's a great analogy, I think, for life. Is like, even in a relationship, like you can't expect her or him, depending on who's watching this, you can't expect them to make you feel good about yourself. You have to already be whole before you can even love someone else, So I say all that. I hope that encourages someone today, and maybe gives you permission to, like, you can be happy now as you are. You don't need to wait on whatever it is you're waiting on. We all do it. I'm not perfect. I struggle with this too, but maybe try to remind yourself when you find yourself in those moments where you're like, man, if I just had that, if I just had that, man, I'd be happy. Man, I'd be good. Try to catch yourself in that moment and snap out of it and say, no, like, yes, I would like this thing, like, the cake analogy I gave. Yes, this would be icing, but me, the foundation, me, who I am, my core being, I'm good the way I am. I can choose to be grateful. I can choose to be happy. I can choose to have thanks for what I have now. I can choose to thank the Lord for what he's blessed me with now. Because another thing is too, like, the things that you have now that you probably take for granted were things that you probably prayed about in the past, right? And now you've gotten there and you're still not like content, right? You're still wanting the next thing and the next thing and it's almost like a dog chasing its tail and it'll never stop. And again, like, I feel like some of that is just part of the human brain and just the way we're wired. And I think some of that is just a byproduct of living in this world. But we can try to do our best to, I think, mitigate some of that needless worrying and striving. And if you're gonna strive, there's nothing wrong with striving, but strive from the right mindset. Don't strive from like this place of, like your happiness depends on it. Strive from a place of, I'm good the way I am, I'm cool, and if I get this, it's just icing on the cake. But either way, I'm good either way. If I get it, cool. If I don't get it, cool. Almost like indifference, or I think the Stoics call it like a moderate approach to everything. So yeah, gonna wrap up here, but I hope that encourages someone, maybe this week, maybe write down 5 things that, you're kind of basing your happiness on, and, maybe write them down and tell yourself, okay, these things would be great, but, I'm good the way I am, and I'm happy. I'm blessed the way I am. And, maybe try to approach life from that perspective, as opposed to, basing the entirety of your happiness on achieving XYZ. So hope this encourages someone. Would love to get, again, the conversation going. What do you guys think? Is there something in your life that, you base your happiness? I know for me, like, I think for a long time it was like a relationship or getting a certain job, I think was something that I felt like, if I finally get that, I'll be happy. I think we can all relate to that, relationship and job. But, what else is out there? What else do you guys kind of struggle with? I'd love to know and talk about it with you. But yeah, if you took anything from this video and you think this could help somebody, please like it, share it, subscribe to my channel. I want to be doing videos like this just to kind of talk to you guys and, just kind of give back some of the things that I've learned throughout my life that maybe could help some of you guys. So would love to, again, get the conversation going. But yeah, until we talk again, hope you guys are doing good and staying strong. I know, this world can be challenging sometimes. So I hope you guys are staying strong, staying encouraged, staying motivated. And I will talk to you next time.